Belinda, maybe from your end, like this whole understanding where you currently drive and your performance in a given ODD, uh, in your opinion, doesn't necessarily need to be emotional, but like in your opinion, how do we use this to inform where else we can drive based on your current driving ODD?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, I think a really important thing that you've touched on is kind of this idea of capabilities and ODD and having a clear understanding of, your system's performance in the different categories that you expect it to operate in. And
Yeah.
then kind of pairing that with, when you are thinking about expanding to a new location or expanding within an existing location on new kind of capabilities. Maybe you're going to, like you said, start doing roundabouts where you've only done traffic lights before. It's kind of being able to map, uh, expected behavior based on historical context and of course all the simulation that we can do without necessarily putting our autonomous system in a new place, comparing that with the actual ODD analysis. And so when you can do manual data collection to and then analyze it in the exact same way that you would autonomous data, you can actually break that down and see how it would perform, right? How similar is this new ODD or this new place that you want to go to compared to what you are able to drive, and kind of match your level set the expectations of the system. And then like we point out here, then also immediately start thinking about actually expanding test coverage before we even think about driving there. Is we should be doing this in simulation with hill, with all sorts of different non public road driving, before we even get there and really start evaluating it.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, look, for example, intersection, even though it's the same with the traffic light and sort of four, two lanes each direction, looks same, but there are different traffic patterns and different sort of subcategories of that intersection handling, which could be different, for example, in Las Vegas, compared to somewhere in Texas, right? For example, or maybe somewhere on the East Coast, like Boston or New York, right? Like the driving patterns change, right? And you also want to make sure you're not overfitting your system to one place. And maybe sometimes you are because you're like, look, that's going to be my ODD for the next 5 years. And I don't care where we are in the next 10 years, but I want to make sure my performance is going to meet the expectations of this very specific focused ODD. Although a lot of times that's not the strategy, that you don't want to go so much overfitting on one performance that it's going to take you another 10 years to build from one ODD to the next ODD. Nick, any thoughts on this expansion approach? Sort of using the transferability of your performance and kind of predicting where else you can drive.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I guess one thing I wanted to comment on too that maybe we haven't touched on a whole lot, and I mean, we have whole teams that focus on this, but I think, designing a system that sort of can respond to uncertainty, I think is an important part. Like, recognizing that we might be out of ODD or we might be in off nominal conditions is super important, right? So even if, because I think you can try to predict and you can try to define this box that is your operational domain as best you can, and you do a ton of work to do that. But ultimately, like, what we see is, oh, this unusual construction pops up, on this ODD, and or suddenly this weather system comes through that is absolutely out of ODD. So how can you design a system so that it recognizes that and responds accordingly, which oftentimes is pulling over to a safe location, whether that be the side of the road or safe harbor spot or something. So I think that's something that's absolutely fundamental before you start to expand your ODD, is being able to have that fault management system or off nominal triggers that allow you to pull over safely should something come up. But in terms of the transferability, I think that's something that we for the Aurora driver that we tout a lot. And I mean, this is public information, is our first product's going to be between Dallas and Houston. We've been actively operating between Dallas and El Paso, heading west. I think sometime in Q3 or Q4 last year, we actually did sort of a transferability test all the way to Phoenix, and with vehicle operators. Of course, we did a lot of offline testing before, tons of analysis on any deltas in that ODD, and
Right.
and I think that was like really helpful to be able to go and experience that and see like, are we actually able to do this? Are we actually able to go operate in other lanes? Now, granted, this was daytime, nice weather conditions, as maybe you'd expect, maybe a little hot, but as you expect in Arizona. But but it was kind of a nice way to actually go and drive that and experience that. But I think, back to having that coverage, understanding your ODD, understanding what to expect, is a really important part. You basically have to do a lot of due diligence beforehand, but you should be able to trust that all of that work that you put in for previous ODDs should transfer over.
No, very well said. I mean, especially construction, that has been our sort of a bone to pick with in around Las Vegas areas, right? You see the construction coming in and out like pretty much unexpected, right? I mean, and the types of the construction you see from an experience has been pretty drastic, right? So the point being the uncertainty handling and having a sort of a probability curve of what situations you can handle gracefully, like human driving, and what situations you want to have a redundancy in the system in place where you can gracefully handle it, pull to the side, or whatever action as minimizing the risk in a way, right? I think that again becomes extremely important in the whole equation of the system.